let's get straight into talking about some PlayStation. First, let's go to the source, original post from PlayStation, the important section. Physical disc gone as of 2028, digital only, PlayStation Store Marketplace only. This was posted July 1st. It is now, as of right now, 12:46 a.m. It is July 10th, and PlayStation Sony has not addressed this at all. They are basically sticking their heads in the sand, sticking their fingers in their ears, saying la 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 la, acting like nothing has happened, acting like business as usual. Before I address this, I want to basically point out the biggest problem with this and the reason that everybody should be worried of this all digital future that Sony wants to impose upon us. Let's go back and make sure everybody remembers. As of September 1st of this year, due to licensing issues with Studio Canal, Sony will be deleting, I believe it's 550 movies from their store and from the systems of people who have already paid for them. They will not be offering any refunds, nothing, just a big fuck you, your content's gone, eat a dick. So, like, this right here, this was a huge red flag for me when it happened. And this was obviously before they had announced their plans for the future. And it's like, I fully acknowledge that I have been a digital, not entirely, mostly digital for quite a long time now. I got on Steam back when it was in beta. When they used to track Steam IDs and games, my Steam ID is 125,000 even. I was the 125,000th person on this earth to have a Steam account. And I still use that account to this day. So I've been digital for a long time. But I did that with the knowledge of what could potentially happen, that this could potentially happen. And I made that choice willingly. And again, it was a choice. I could always go back to a console and start using discs again. I could always install a disk drive, and I guess there aren't too many disc-based games for PC these days that you can actually pay for, but there are still options on ways of getting your installers through GOG or GOG, or even through pirating, because as we all know, if purchasing isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. So there were still always options and ways. The computer gives you that, PC gives you that. PlayStation will not be giving you this option. If they continue with their plans for digital only, you will not have options when it comes to PlayStation. You will be forced into their store, their ecosystem, their pricing, their rules, their regulations, their limitations, as you can see clearly right here. Computer does not have these problems. You have multiple marketplaces. You have piracy. You have emulation. You have modding. You have things that a console will never have. And even if a console did have them, Sony would not allow it on their system. They just wouldn't. So let's talk about some of the stuff, some of the numbers. So their reason for doing this right here, 85% of the games bought on PlayStation are digital. Now, this number is manipulated and misleading. 85% of the transactions, I suppose you could say, on PlayStation are digital. To say that games bought are digital is incorrect, because this 85% factors in DLC, factors in microtransactions, factors in free-to-play games, it factors in games that are digital only, that do not have a physical release. So this number is not accurate. And as this Canadian guy, so I found this guy through Twitter, through the For You feed, and I kept it because he has some good stuff in here. And it's like he says, is 85% of games are digital. Does that mean that if 100 copies of Spider-Man are sold, 85% of them, 85 are digital? No, that's not what it means. It is not what it means at all. So I'm not going to go through and read this whole thing, but basically the point is that the reason that so many of the purchases in the gaming industry are digital, the reason that it seems like 80% of all the purchases are digital, and it's not, that is a semi-accurate number, is because DLC, microtransaction are included in that, but also because the growing number of indie games, the growing number of digital-only games, the growing number of incredibly cheap games that you can buy. There are bundles of games you can buy. 10 games for $1 on various websites and even through Steam and other marketplaces. And every single one of those packages of games counts as a single individual game sold, which is contributing to this big 85%. And if you go and you look through, let me skip through a little bit and find the one I want. Here. If you look through it and you go through games that actually had a both physical and digital release, and these were some of the biggest PS5 games, I believe this is from PS5, yeah. These are some of the biggest PS5 games that they made. Almost all of them, with the exception of the sports game, are over 50% sold in physical. You know, some of their biggest games of, this was back in 2023, but some of their biggest games of that year, over 50%, over 60% for all of them, over 70% for, more than half. So, the numbers that they're giving, their justification is not accurate. It is misleading. And here's another image, same type of thing. They say that 78, 80% of their sales are digital and physical. But if you break it down into games that actually have physical releases, you can see here. And this is from an Insomniac leak, apparently. God of War Ragnarok, 76% physical. That's 3/4 of the sales. 3/4. For every 4 games sold, 3 of them are physical. For Lego Star Wars, 60%. Astrobot, one of their biggest games, game of the year, over 50%. Spider-Man 2, over 50%. It's like even the lower end of the games that had an option, still 40% physical, 44% physical. And Hogwarts Legacy was the biggest game you know, for a long time. It's the biggest game for a long time. I think it's still currently, I guess it would probably be Grand Theft Auto 6 right now, but I believe beforehand it was like one of the highest selling, if not the highest selling game of all time. Certainly one of the fastest selling games of all time. Now it's been supplanted by GTA 6, but, you know, as many sales as this got, it was almost 50% physical. So, again, the argument isn't holding up when you break down the numbers in a less misleading way. When you remove DLC, microtransactions, free to plays, when you look at games that actually got a physical release, you see that it's not some small niche crowd that is buying this. It is actually a large percentage of the player base that is buying physical media. And so, again, their justification for it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to go over to Grok here. So I read on a post somewhere that PlayStation, and I believe it's PlayStation. I don't know if it's the entire industry, but PlayStation, or at least PlayStation specifically, has been selling roughly 70 million physical copies of games for the past 10 years. Now, according to Grok, that it hasn't necessarily been exactly a constant full 10 years, but they are averaging nearly 70 million physical games sold for a decent amount of time. You see right here, Sony reported shipping approximately 70 million PlayStation games in fiscal year 2025, down 4%. Down, but not a lot, really. Analysts have reported 70 million new disc-based PlayStation games sold or shipped in 2025, aligning closely with the post. That's again the post that I saw. I brought it to Grok's attention so I could ask it what it thought. The post claimed 70 million copies per year for 10 years. Now, Grok says physical sales have remained high in the tens of millions annually in recent years, often cited around 70 million. So in recent years, that's got to say at least the last 5 years, they've sold 70 million or right around there every year. It hasn't changed. So, but what has changed, as Grok says right here, as their share of total software sales dropped around 20 to 22% due to massive digital growth. This is why it seems like such a huge thing. The truth is, same amount of people are buying physical games as always have. It hasn't gone down, at least not maybe not always, but as have so the past 5 to 10 years at least. It hasn't gone down. It hasn't changed. Sony knows this. But what has increased is just the amount of digital games that are available. It's an insane amount. Every day on Steam, there's new games, and I imagine the same thing is true on the PlayStation Store. This is why it seems like digital is dominating so much. It's not because they're selling more just because there is more. It's not that this amount of physical sales have gone down. That has stayed constant and will stay constant, assuming there is a supply. Sony is willing to forego this 70 million discs sold per year because they're going to make, they believe, a lot of money by switching to all digital. Let me see what else did I ask this. So I asked it. I asked it if the digital domination is due to a decline in physical purchasing or a massive increase in digital games and shady tactics, free games, Game Pass, etc., etc. So basically, both factors contribute, but it's primarily a combination of massive increase in digital-only games and broader digital transactions, DLC, microtransactions, indie subscriptions. But subscriptions are also included in this, not just a steep decline in purchases. Absolute physical volumes remains substantial. Again, Sony shipped 70 million games in fiscal year 2025. Modest decline, around 4%. That's not a big drop. Sony physical purchasing hasn't collapsed. For big first-party titles with first physical releases, physical often still leads or is competitive, e.g. 60 to 77% physical per Insomniac leaks from many exclusives. So physical is not dead. Digital dominance comes from a supply side expansion. That's it. There is just so much more supply. For every game that releases with both a physical and a digital, physical generally leads. Physical generally outsells digital when the option is there. So it becomes, well, why would they do this? So let's go. Well, why would they do this? It's on here where I have Sleep Site somewhere. Here it is, yeah. So what is it? They want to cut the middleman. They want to cut Walmart. They want to cut Amazon. They want to cut GameStop. Why do they want to cut these out? The reason is because every single one of these stores, just like Steam, Steam also takes the same cut. They take 30% of every game sold. This is how they make their money. Everybody makes their money. Players get their physical media, stores get their cut, devs and publishers get their cut. Sony wants to cut that out. They want to take that 30% and keep it for themselves. But the thing is, they're not going to give anything back to the gamers. You're not going to get to own your games anymore. You're not going to get to own anything on a PlayStation anymore. You're not going to get cheaper games. Even though they're getting 30% more money, they're not going to cut it by 30%. They're not going to cut it by 15%. That would still increase their profits by 15% and show a little bit of love to the gamers. Not going to happen. They're not going to cut it by 10, 5. Not going to cut it by 1 fucking percent. What they are going to do is raise it. Because why wouldn't they? There's no more competition. And the reason they're doing this is because they think, as it says right here, the fan base won't switch, that they can do what they want without losing fans. They think they're untouchable. They really believe that they have become so big that they cannot fail. And they obviously forgot what happened from the PS2 to PS3 era. PS2 was massive. In that time, you would have thought PlayStation couldn't fail. And the PS3 came out at an insane price level. And what happened? It got outsold by the 360 like crazy. And it wasn't until they dropped the price down and created the Slim that it was able to creep back up into the fucking conversation. And then what happened? Xbox fucked up by doing the exact same thing they're doing right now, trying to force people into an all digital future. And PlayStation went the opposite way, decided to keep physical media, and they dominated for the next 2 generations, which is why they're in the position they're in right now. And they think that they can press their luck by making the exact same mistake Xbox did, and it won't affect them. They think they are too big to fail. They think that the money is worth it. They think that whatever few fans that will leave, which they think it won't be many, will be more than made up for by the amount of money they're going to make from digital. And as I said, right, and this is a quote from them, they're too big to have communication with fans. That's what they think of us. They think of us as lowly, little, mindless consumers that will just eat anything they throw at us, as long as it's got that stupid ass PS symbol on the side of it. Same thing. It's no different than Marvel and Star Wars, It's no different than a lot of beloved IPs that have fallen by the wayside over the years. They think just because they stamp their little logo on it, people will keep showing up. It's not the case. This isn't going to end the way they think it is. And from what I've been seeing, I guess they have never offered a discount on PSN before, at least not for canceling. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what I read. That when you cancel, generally they just let you cancel. It's like Netflix. You cancel, whatever. We don't care. We're not going to try to. We don't do retention. What I understand now, and I've seen the screenshots, they are offering 50% off discounts for basically everyone who tries to cancel their PSN account right now. Again, as far as I know, they have not done this before. They've offered discounts in the past for various promotions and stuff, but they've never given you one to try and keep you from canceling. So that means that the pressure is working. They are feeling it, they're understanding it. I checked out, and I've seen again uh, posts from their stock value, and since the announcement, I believe it has gone down almost 2%, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but a 2% drop in stock is huge for a company like this. They operate on a few percentage points for a company this big is millions to billions of dollars, like hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. It's a lot of fucking money when you lose 2% of your value and you're that big. So they're feeling it, they and they're trying to basically do a smokescreen. They're trying to ignore it. They're trying to keep pumping out tweets after tweets about different games and different things. They put their first tweet after going silent for almost a week was about a fight stick, trying to basically just ignore everything that's happening. And then IGN and Kotaku both came out with articles, I believe on the same day, surprisingly enough, saying how no fan backlash was going to work, how Sony didn't care, Sony would never listen, Sony's not going to change their mind. So basically, we need to shut up and get over it. Both IGN and Kotaku, and probably a few of the other oh so credible gaming sites, came out with articles in the same fashion. And again, it just feels like a smokescreen. They're trying to break the will of the players, trying to get them to shut up and consume. And I don't think it's going to work this time. I hope it doesn't work this time. Any corporation that feels like it's too big to have communication with the fans deserves to fail. They deserve to fail. Now, my timeline has been filled with people saying fuck Sony, saying they're canceling, showing screenshots of their cancellation of their PSN, showing screenshots of their physical collections, all kinds of stuff. But Twitter shows you what you want to see. So because I'm liking and interacting with so many of these posts, that's why I'm seeing them. So it's hard to break out of the bubble and know, you know, do the normies know about this? Are the normies siding with us, or do they not care? And it's very simple to talk to them and get them to fucking switch the side because normies, you know, they don't care. So if you explain anything to them, they'll switch over to your side real fast. It really just depends on who they hear from first. Kind of simple minded like that. But I don't know if it has or not. Um, I need to check in. I got some normies in the family that still play some games. We'll check in with them, and we'll see. Maybe they have heard. Hopefully they've heard, and hopefully they are against this. But we'll find out. I'll report back to you guys when I know how the normies are reacting to this type of news, if they've even heard of it. Because as much as I hate it, we need them to be on our side for this to really take effect. Because it's working and they're noticing, but them noticing may still not be enough to get them to walk it back. This needs to be huge and it needs to be sustained. And if it's made it out of the bubble, if it's broken containment and made it into the mainstream and made it to the point where not just Twitter is mad about it, but everyone is, then they're done. They will, so similar to Xbox, they will completely lose at least one generation, possibly two, and then who knows if they even still exist by then. To be perfectly honest, I hope they don't. It's like behaving like this, You don't deserve to exist as a business. You don't, as far as I'm concerned. But that's enough of that. I spoke my piece. So, I mean, it's fucking. It just doesn't make any damn sense. What's the point of a console if you don't have discs for it? There's literally no point to having a console if you can't play discs on it. You may as well just get a computer. Like, if they're gonna force you to go digital only, well, you may as well go to the best digital only storefront that is out right now. That's Steam. Call me a show, fucking PC show, whatever you want. I don't care. Steam is the best digital storefront that's out right now. Maybe GOG is better because it actually gives you real ownership of the things you buy. But both of them are PC. PlayStation is never going to give you access to GOG or Steam. So, you know, if they don't change their mind, PC is always waiting for you guys.